this is what we're going to go through in this presentation. We're going to be looking at automation in HubSpot. We're going to be looking at some examples, particularly around outreach. We're doing internal and external processes. That actually number six should say external processes, because there are many workflows or use case scenarios that people really don't think about. And I want to just raise the bar a little bit, make sure that you are not missing out on some of the functionality that you've paid for. And this is one of the big things that I'm trying to get out to you during this presentation. And finally, how do you measure success? So we're going to discuss the importance of workflows in the context, obviously, of the inbound methodology, and to enhance your automation strategy. So why bother? Why are workflows important? What's the point? And before I get into these type of questions, which is the type of things that you might be familiar with, I want to mention something about HubSpot itself and the different tiers and the different levels. Because if you look at the free version, if you look at the starter version, and you look at the professional, there is a massive jump in cost if you go from starter to professional. And a common question that we get asked is why? What's the value in going from one to the other? And there are multiple different pieces of functionality that the pro version gives you, but the outstanding one for me and our clients is workflows and automation. It's the big jump. The way I tend to look at this and the way I tend to talk to clients around this is, what's the purpose of deploying and investing in a system such as HubSpot? What are you trying to do? And the answer I often get back, and I think it's very, very common, is we're trying to grow our business. We're trying to do more with less. We're trying to be bigger than we were, and we're trying to scale. And the only way a business can scale, the only way that you can really grow, is to automate. And automation is workflows, and that's HubSpot's secret sauce. It really is why you pay your extra money for that additional subscription. It's why there's so much invested in that particular piece of technology. And when I look at a lot of client accounts, even the large ones, they're often not using all of the different elements that are available, or not even using workflows at all, apart from a very simple email response. So, and many people don't realize the different aspects that workflows can deliver. I'm not going to do an advanced course on workflows today, just to set this straight. This isn't going to be a coding exercise. You're not going to need to know how to do go-tos and jumps and complicated rule-based things. That's not the point. The point here is really to highlight some common use case scenarios that you might not even be aware of, and just to make you think, make you take stock a little about what the tool that you've paid for, what it does, and how you can make best use out of it. So these are the type of questions that are triggers for a potential solution through automation. I never received directions on how to start setting up my account. No one told me my subscription was ending today. I didn't even get a heads up, and now I can't log in. What are the credentials for this webinar again? It's in 20 minutes and I haven't heard back from your support team. All of these are customer type questions that you might be receiving, and all of them can be addressed by automation. So I'm commonly advising businesses about this type of thing, about processes. And one of the things that I push quite often is this idea that whatever it was that got you and your company to where it is today, you're going to have to do something different to get it to where you want it to be tomorrow. And an example of that is scale. You can grow a business, you can hire a small team, you can build revenue. But when you hit a barrier, you'll start to level off, you'll start to plateau. And you start at that point, in order to go to the next stage, you need to do something differently. Now, that might be hiring more people, but particularly common is you have to put processes and automation in place. And this is where the HubSpot system is really powerful. So these type of questions, they can cause frustration and anger within your customer base. And here's something else. And this is one of the areas which are often missed as an opportunity when people talk about automation. It looks like this contact moved from a lead to a customer on the same day. Do you remember what they purchased? I don't see any notes here. I already connected with Katie on your sales team. Why am I getting another email from you? So Mark didn't update the lead status for any of his contacts before he left. Who am I supposed to reach out? Who am I supposed to reach out to first? If you think about it, these are internal and sales type questions. Automation, particularly within the HubSpot traditional user base, has always thought of automation in terms of marketing. But there are multiple different HubSpot pieces of functionality and multiple hugs. So hugs and hugs. You've obviously got marketing, you've got sales, you've got service. All of these things, workflows and automation can apply. And I constantly are looking at HubSpot portals, and although the marketing is often used, the other elements, the internal use, is often neglected. And the sales side of it, again, is something which can really, really benefit from automation. Some interesting stats here. 23% of salespeople cite manual data entry as the biggest challenge. They're spending a massive amount of time, an hour or more each day, doing data entry, doing admin, updating information, and a lot of this can be automated. So let's take a look at the methodology. Now, many of you will have seen this. The HubSpot move away from the funnel to the flywheel. And what is a workflow? Let's have a look at the definition. Series of automated actions that you can trigger to occur based on a person's behavior or contact information. So that's an interesting point. You can have multiple different reasons for a workflow to trigger. Yes, so it can be their behavior. They might have come onto the site 3 times in the last week. They might have filled in a form. They might have moved from one deal stage to another. They might have become a customer. They might have stopped becoming a customer. All of these things are valid reasons to trigger a workflow. So what is the point of this this flywheel model? It is really useful to see, and it's really quite simple. A flywheel, it's a spinning wheel that has momentum, and there are 2 things which impact on that. One is the force, the positive force that drives the wheel around. So these are the engagements, the sales calls, the lead nurturing, the value that you're adding as a company. But also there is a negative force, which is friction. And that is triggered by some of the questions that we saw previously. When people get frustrated, when they get angry, when they find it difficult to do simple tasks, or they haven't been informed about things which they should have been informed about, and it was somebody's job and that somebody forgot, that creates friction, that creates churn. Churn is one of the biggest causes of loss of profitability in companies. If you're losing clients, you have to replace them just to even stand still. So as I said, 2 things to focus on here: external outreach and internal processes. So really, really interesting work scenarios here. Things, again, we're going to share this with you, so don't worry about writing these things down. The presentation will be shared. Lead nurturing is the most obvious application for workflows. A form is filled in. you've got their contact details, you've got their email address. You can send out a series of follow-up emails and potential tasks and internal emails as well to move the prospect along their buyer's journey. That's the purpose of lead nurturing, right? It's to educate and to drive that prospect further along their buyer's journey: awareness, consideration, decision. So your lead nurturing should always be focused on moving the needle, moving those people along. Re-engagement. This is a classic one. We tend to think of lead nurturing is the most obvious. Fill in a form. Thank you very much. Here's 3 emails, and things end. But people get busy. Life gets in the way. Business happens, and you get forgotten about. So there is probably a massive number of disengaged contacts within your database who really would benefit from your help and guidance. So those can be identified with appropriate filters and lists within HubSpot. Those lists can be active lists, so they're always up to date, and they can drive workflows. A reminder, an engagement, an invitation to a workflow. I'm just getting a message from Katie saying, has the session started? I'm presuming everybody can see my screen and can see and hear me. Can I just get a quick yes from everybody? Thanks, Alex. Kate, I have absolutely no idea why you can't see me, but worst case scenario, we'll send out the recording and you'll see it. Thank you, everybody. Good to know I'm not talking into the darkness. Promotions and referrals. This is an obvious one. I would caution people not to go overboard on this. It's one of the points of having a sophisticated inbound system such as HubSpot, that you can cut and dice, you can segment your data into different groups, different personas at the very least, right? So a particular persona in a particular point in their journey would appreciate a promotion of some sort. You shouldn't use your database as a way of mass promotion to everybody with the same offer. You should use things like progressive profiling to build up a good understanding of your prospect base, and also not only the static data about them, but their behavior. So you can send out different offers to different people in different levels of their journey. And again, that's the point of the workflow model within HubSpot. If you compare it to something, I don't know, one of the Gmail blasting tools, they don't have this level of sophistication. This isn't a pitch for HubSpot. It's more a question, a call to action to get you to use the functionality that's in there. The sophistication of this tool is very, very good. And the point of that is twofold. One, you'll get more business from it. But also you will get less bounces, you will get less unsubscribes, and that maintains the quality of your email database. Event reminders, this is a classic one. You would have received emails from White Hat prior to this call. You would have probably received a reminder just before. You have to be a little careful of this. We ourselves are guilty of probably sending out too many, and people can get as annoyed as much as happy. So you have to have a balance. There's loads of things that you want to talk to or people to have people know about. It doesn't mean you should be sending out a massive flood of information to everyone. Again, segment, cut and dice. If people have been on an event before, it's probably sensible to say that they'll want to come back and know about new ones that you're having. But if people have not consistently signed up and you've sent emails over the last month, you really shouldn't be pushing too hard. Onboarding customers and welcome. This is a really useful piece of functionality. Again, flowing into the Service Hub use of workflows. Often when prospects become customers, and the service team starts working and the product and delivery team start working with those customers, automation goes out the window and it becomes somebody's job to do something and maintain a relationship. HubSpot has the tools to really help with this. If you're onboarding a client, if welcome emails, forms that they need to fill in, tasks internally that have to be done, all of these can be automated. Similarly, as a customer becomes more mature, you have an opportunity to upsell and cross-sell. You can, again, measure their interaction with systems. What are they looking at? What is their engagements levels? Are they really happy? Are you using Net Promoter Score outreach to find out whether they're happy with your service? And you can use that as a means to either improve if it's a low score, or to potentially upsell if they're really, really happy with you. Yeah, that's the feedback part of this. Education around products, brilliant. You know, so much time and effort gets put into delivering new products. You have an opportunity to help educate the database that you have around a launch. Abandoned shopping cart, classic one. If you've got ways of tracking that through people who've been onto the site, looked at a particular offer, but have failed to complete a form, you can then use the tools to remind them about it, to find out why, or even to reach out. If it's a high ticket item, it might be something that's passed over to a salesperson to follow up. And subscription renewals, obviously. Lead nurturing is the most obvious one. Like I say, I'm not going to dive into the actual mechanics of setting this up. One of the things that we've done for you, and this will come out as an email that I'm going to send out post the event, we've put together a workbook for you, which gives you a way of stepping through a couple of different exercises to get your toe into the use of workflows. And there's a whole load of information there which is going to back up these slides. So this isn't just a rally cry to tell you to go off and do some workflows. We've actually put some work in to create a tool for you as well. And that'll come out later on with the follow-up email. But this is the classic one with lead nurturing, right? So contact has filled in a form submission, or a CTA has been clicked, and then you will send out a series of emails. Remember to put a delay, but if it's more than one email, I often get asked, what's the optimal time to spread these type of emails out? And there honestly is no obvious answer to that. It can be anything from a couple of days to a couple of weeks. If you have a very long sales process and it's a super high ticket product or service that you're selling, a nurture campaign might last over 6 months. And blasting people with 6 emails in a week is not the way to build trust. Re-engagement, this is the classic one. Does not have at least one page view or URL that contains, in this case, HubSpot, for more than 180 days. Reach out, find out why. Maybe you're not providing enough value. Maybe there's something that they want to use. Here's a question. I'll take the questions on the fly. Why wouldn't you use the HubSpot sequence for lead nurturing? You absolutely can. And the balance between sequences and workflows is quite subtle in some scenarios. The way I tend to think about it is you would use sequences where you have a sales qualified lead, where you have a clear opportunity that you believe is going to close. And a sequence, but remember the difference between the two. A sequence is hyper-personalized. I can say that, right? Hyper-personalized. So when you set up a sequence, you have to manually go in and modify the template for each contact. You need to put in information about what it is that they're talking to you about, that you might want to remind them about an event that you both attended, or a call that you had with them. That isn't possible within a general marketing workflow. The general marketing workflow has information such as their name, static information about them and their company. So you can't use a workflow to say, oh, it was great to speak to you last Tuesday and I'd really love to follow up. That's what a sequence is for. The sequence is used by a sales team to engage with somebody where you've got a real knowledge about that person, but maybe they're not engaging back for any reason. They're probably busy. Maybe they don't want to deal with you, in which case that's fine, but you need to know. So a sequence might be send out one email, call them up, leave a follow-up email, a task to call up again, this type of thing. So there's a difference between them, and it's a level of personalization which is the difference. Welcoming onboarding customers, I've mentioned this before. This is Service Hub, right? But the idea here is to automate the process. I've seen this happen or not happen very many times, where a customer becomes a customer, but nothing happens for several days. They've given you their money, they've signed on the dotted line, they're really enthusiastic about how to get going, what to do next, and nothing. There's this whole of nothingness that happens, and then suddenly they'll get a call or an email when the service or product person actually remembers to do something about it. You can automate that. You can have a welcome email, even if it's a standard one with some information, introducing yourself, your services, your people, and what they can expect. If that goes out quickly, it really builds trust again. Oops, beg your pardon. Yeah, so point here, keeping customers engaged, quick value, training materials, and based on particular triggers. The classic one that's shown here is ClassPass, which is if you join up for a gym, you get an email reminding you to download the app, booking your first class, pushing you to join a studio, referring somebody, and adding friends. This doesn't have to be done by a person. This is classic welcome stuff that could be automated. So in case you don't know the process, select the type. Enrollment triggers. Enrollment triggers are what is going to be the cause of this workflow? Is it going to be a manual process where you have to add people in, or is it going to be a list, or is it going to be a form that somebody's filled in? Those type of things. You add a series of actions, you edit the settings for each of those, and you set a goal. The goal is quite important and often ignored, and let me give you an example of a goal. So you might have a series of emails that go out that is trying to make an appointment with a salesperson to book a demo, for example. And so you'll send the first email, you'll wait a few days, you'll send a second email. And after the second, maybe you've got 3 or 4 emails. After the second one, the user actually books an appointment. What you don't want to do is for then emails 3 and 4 to be sent, reminding them to book an appointment, because they've done it, right? So the goal serves 2 purposes. It stops the workflow continuing, because for that particular person, it has succeeded in doing what it's doing. But it also feeds back into statistics. So as you look back on different workflows that you've tried in the past, you can see which ones are working and which ones are not, because otherwise you don't have a clue. It's very difficult to improve something if you're not measuring it. So that's what I would say. In terms of, I had a slide here, which is to look at how to build a workflow. I'm going to skip that, because to be honest, I'm going to give you some resources on HubSpot, which will demo that a lot better than me just walking through. And I think there's so much around it. My point here is to get you to think about use cases for workflows, because I think they are highly underutilized. And then the other thing I did want to go through is a couple of best practices. Hopefully these are obvious. I like stating obvious stuff, because I often find that 50–60% of the people say, oh gosh, yeah, good point. So please bear with me. First thing, apart from very, very simple workflows, try and map them out beforehand. These things can get complex. They can get convoluted. There can be difficult rules. And particularly if you've got a complex marketing workflow, you might want to discuss it with people, brainstorm it. So throw it up on a whiteboard, collaborate. I mean, there's digital whiteboards. You can use flow management tools before you go off and build it. Even if you just sketch it on a piece of paper, it is really useful to clarify in your own mind what you're actually trying to do. So document it, I think, is really really good. Test your workflow. Many people just presume that what they're doing is going to work. They build the whole thing out, click OK, and a week later they're wondering why it's not doing what it's supposed to do. HubSpot has a test capability within the system. You can actually assign a contact, and I do suggest you assign maybe an internal one or a safe one, a dummy contact where no damage is going to be done if you send out the wrong emails to that person. And it will actually take that contact and flow it through the workflow, and you will receive the emails that are appropriate. So you can, and this is particularly useful if you're testing if-then statements or branches within workflows, which can get quite complex. So test it before it's actually kicked off. Try not to edit active workflows. You can see, if you look on the list of workflows, you can see how many people are in the middle of this workflow. If you stop a workflow, go in and change it, all of these people will terminate. They will not complete. They will essentially fall out the bottom of that workflow, and they won't have all of the actions assigned to them that you would expect. So be very, very careful about jumping in and changing things. Check for conflicts. This is actually very common, particularly if you've got several people working on a system. The demonstration here says that there are 432 workflows using that particular lifecycle stage property, which sounds really weird, but this is the HubSpot demo site, which is why it has a strange value in there. But if you go to your settings and properties, say your workflow in this case has an effect on lifecycle stage. You might be moving it from subscriber to lead for some particular reason. There might be another workflow that you or somebody else has created which moves it in a different direction or on a different rule. And it can be very difficult sometimes to look at dependencies. So if you think that might be an issue, go into the properties, go into that particular property, and it will show you the workflows that are currently using that property. So just check them out, and it can save an awful lot of debugging later on. I mentioned this before. Don't forget to add delays where necessary, particularly obviously with email sequences. But this is a slightly less obvious scenario. If you're sending an email and then depending on whether people click or don't click on a link, for example, within that email, you can take a different course of action. There's an if-then branch involved. If there's no delay, you send out the email and then test. Obviously, they haven't had a chance to actually open and click that email. So one side of that branch will just be completely ignored. So think a little bit about what's going on, the time, the processes involved. Give people time to take action before you test the action. This is a common mistake. Communication with your team and naming conventions, a particular bugbear of myself, because I'm guilty of it, and everybody is. When you start out creating workflows or anything within the HubSpot system, the tendency is to give it a simple name, and it kind of makes sense to you at the time because you're working on that particular project. and you don't think too much about it. Time moves on, you create another one and another one, and then you might move on to a different role, somebody else comes in, and you look back at all of the workflows and forms and everything else that you have within the system, and none of it really makes sense. So try and set up some form of simple nomenclature, naming convention. In this case, we're using internal and external as a prefix for the name, just to separate out the different types of workflows and their use case. And then again, include the properties that are being affected if that's one of the reasons that the workflow is being used, so that you have an English description of what that workflow is doing. It's very easy not to do this. The other thing, I would write this down and document it with your team so that everybody follows the same procedures. It can get very, very messy. Obviously, we're not actually going to take a break now, but I did create a workbook for you, and you can go off and experiment with some of this, and there's an activity for you to do here. So let's have a quick recap. Workflows and the inbound methodology, how to create one, best practices, and workflows for external. So internal processes, just again, I'm not going to spend much on this because we're relatively short of time, but I just want to highlight a couple of use cases. Set clear copy means properties. So for example, if you have an address field which is associated with a company, you might want to have a workflow which sets that address to all of the contacts who are associated with that company, presuming that there is just one physical address, so you don't have their home address in there, for example, unless that's what you want. Task management is a really, really useful task when processes or deals or tickets move from different stages, or a contact reaches a certain level of lead scoring. You might assign a task to a salesperson or a service person. Deal management is the classic one. Moving from one stage of a deal to another, what can you automate based on that? Is there sign-off forms that people need to do? Is there approval that people need to sign before you can move a deal from to be approved, for example? Handoff from sales, marketing to sales, and also from sales to service is a classic one. Rotating leads. This is often ignored. When a lead comes into the system, they might have filled in a form, they become sales qualified, they've ticked all the boxes. What happens to them, right? And you might have 10 different salespeople who could potentially take up on that lead. Do you just leave it unassigned and hope and get the first person to grab it? The HubSpot can assign those leads to your sales team in a round robin type way if that's what you want. So that's really, really useful. So again, tickets, escalating high priority tickets, things like that. So just really whizzing through a couple of these as examples. Setting properties, matching company records and contact records, which can get out of sync. Task management, reminders for the sales reps or for sales ops to approve a quote. Deal management, updating deal stages, prioritizing, surfacing deals that have no sales activity. This is a classic one in sales. Often a sales deal can sit at a particular stage for weeks or months, and it gets forgotten about. Well, it shouldn't be forgotten about. Somebody should be alerted to that, particularly if it's a potential high quality deal, and workflows can do that. Same for tickets. High priority ones can be escalated so that things don't get forgotten. And again, we've got some options in the workbook for you to do that. Measuring success. The only thing I wanted to do here really is to let you know that you can. Again, it's one of those tabs within HubSpot that is not obvious. Once a workflow is running, you often just let it run. But if you look at the performance button, if you open up the workflow and look at the performance button, it will show you how many emails have been sent, how many emails have been opened, and the overall success of that workflow. So really spend some time. These links will obviously be live in the email, in the presentation that we send out. There is an inbound certification course around this. There's lessons in workflows, which goes into this in more detail in terms of the physics of actually using it. The HubSpot Academy is actually brilliant. If you're not regularly putting yourself and your team through Academy lessons, you're missing out on a huge amount of value. And the user blog, obviously, we all know the value that HubSpot themselves create. We have a community. I would urge you to go there. It's where we will publish the recordings, but you can also see recordings from other hugs and other events that have happened. And if you want to connect with me, there is my LinkedIn link. I'd be very happy to talk to any of you. That is kind of where we are. Hopefully you found that useful as a prod, as a reminder to dig deeper on workflows. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything that I can help or solve now? If not, not a problem. Happy to share this back out with the group, and you can dive onto those resources. Put them into chat if you have any questions. If not, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to end it. I really appreciate you all turning up. Hopefully you're going to join us again. As you probably know, we run 2 different hugs. This is the London hug, where we touch onto everything relating to HubSpot. We also run the SEO hug, which is a global hug focused on search engine optimization. We're really excited about that. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Sasha. And see you all again.